You recently did a video on Richard Dawkins, which I watched because I was really interested in Dawkins' comments on cultural Christianity. I think I've actually got them because I was asking someone else about it. He said this weird thing that he was happy, basically, that Christianity has gone down. He said it's truth that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. Certainly, if we substituted any alternative religion, that would be truly dreadful. And later he specifically mentions Islam as being one of the ones that would be dreadful. So your video seemed to me, where you differed from Dawkins was, you're still an atheist, but you were sad about it. You weren't happy about the decline. I'm happy less people believe in it, but I want my cathedrals. You're like, I'm sad about the cathedrals, and I'm sad about the lack of belief. I'm still an atheist, but I don't necessarily think it's a good thing anymore. Correct?
Basically. I mean, it's not even whether I think it's good or bad. It's just the fact of the matter is you can't have belief without believers. And so Dawkins going, okay, I want the cathedrals, but I don't really care or really want people to be Christians. It's like, well, the cathedrals are supported by the fact that people are Christian. That's how they make their money. That's how they have worshippers. That's how they stay open. And this is why the cathedrals are the sort of remnant of a dead faith. It's really weird. I've been going to a lot of cathedrals recently, just they're magnificent buildings. I've been recording some stuff. And it's just so weird to see the most impressive buildings you've ever seen essentially derelict. And so now it's like a few people wandering around taking photos of like, wow, look at this marvelous architecture. But they're not full of people singing hymns. So it's like this giant husk of a faith that used to exist and obviously had a great deal of power within it has gone away. But the building, of course, is made of stone, so it persists. And it's like, okay, there's something that's truly terrible that's happened here, isn't there? Mm. And so
it's like one of those giant skeletons of a blue whale in the Natural History Museum.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, you can't have the faith without the faithful. And Richard Dawkins has spent his entire second half of his life basically ridiculing, berating the faithful, turning them into non-believers. And then it's like, okay, but I don't want to get rid of the things that the faith provided. And it's like, well, you can't have one without the other.
And you've started to actually attack people who do that, like John Cleese, and really you're saying, can you all stop trying to destroy Christianity, even though you're still an atheist yourself?
Yeah.
And I'm going to challenge you on two little things. This is where I always lose. One is that you say there's a fundamental imbalance in belief between Islam and the Christian West, correct? You use the phrase fundamental. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One critique of that is that the West has a different style of belief. We don't have the absolutism of Islam, but of course there are times in history where Christianity is absolutist and we get into wars about it. But for a long, long time now, we've had a more reflective, sort of doubting, but kind of different approach. It's a Greco-Roman into Christianity approach that we just reason things differently. And so it's not necessarily that we have a lack of, that we don't have the same level of belief. We just have a different style of belief. What do you think to that one, firstly?
I think we may well have a different style of belief, but I also think we have much less belief.
Yeah.
I think
you mean in the West, because you can also argue, and it's a separate point, that like in Nigeria or something, or the Coptics in Egypt, there's still a more, let's say, I don't know, what would be the word, more passionate Christian belief.
Yeah, no, absolutely. More sincere, more full, more passionate. There definitely are areas of the world where they don't have the problem that the West has. But even the Christians, even like the bishops and things like that, just don't really seem to believe in Christianity. Everything is second order at best. Whereas in Muslim countries, it's very much first order. It's the primacy of mind is Islam and belief in their faith. Whereas for us, it's a secondary or third, tertiary consideration, and most people don't really. I mean, no, it's about half and half now. About half of people will call themselves Christians, but church attendance is at 6%. Mosque attendance is not at 6%. Yeah.
This is definitely a problem. But if we were to build it back, there seems to be. You're someone who tends to be. I don't know if you're an optimist, but you're quite sort of. Hey, let's do something. Let's build our communities again. Let's take action and do what we can, right? And you're producing a lot yourself. You're not apathetic in your actions. So when it comes to Christianity, I don't really see why we can't just build it back. Because what you say it needs to be a sincere conviction, not a utilitarian calculus. and I've been accused of a utilitarian calculus, which I don't think it is. My claim is that Christian belief was rarely a kind of evangelical rapture. It might have been for some people, it might have been St. Paul converting, but for a lot of people, it was probably, yeah, I basically believe it, or to different degrees, or, you know, you could grill the average person about the resurrection, they might not have a strong opinion on it. But in the aggregate, we were a Christian culture. And I think in England, particularly, being English in nature, yes, like I said, there's been these wars and massive conflicts, but for a lot of the time, we probably just had different degrees of belief. I don't believe that makes it insincere. I think there's a misunderstanding amongst some atheists about why they must be an atheist, because even sympathetic people like you, like, well, they need this event before they can convert. Why can't a sincere conviction be a reasoned process like Peter Hitchens went through when he reasoned, for example, he'd rather live in a world where his actions have meaning, or Lewis's reasoning process, which was a different one, but he came back to Christianity having been a fairly arrogant atheist, even dabbling with satanic magical stuff. He was very atheistic, then he came back to Christianity. So why can't it be a reasoning process that many of us like start to go through, where we end up and go, hang on, throughout history, smart people have wrestled with this. It's not a linear progression towards atheism. Smart people have always wrestled with this cyclically. This could come back if we all start looking into it again, because it's not going to drop on us from the sky necessarily. We might need to look into it, like you look into, do I believe in liberalism still? The more you study it and you come to it and you go, oh, there's historical evidence for this, or there's the Big Bang Theory is suspect, or whatever gets you there. That doesn't make it not a sincere conviction just because it's been arrived at in that way, and not everyone's rapturous in the street preaching. That's one critique I have. What do you think?
I think the problem is that the impulse comes from something outside of the religion itself, right? As in, you're like, okay, the world's falling apart, people are acting in immoral ways, maybe we need to go back to God, or, you know, I don't believe the Big Bang or whatever it is, maybe we need to go back to God. But that's a kind of consolation prize. Like, that's not the very front of your mind, is not the worship of God, because for some reason God is the default alternative that you just, okay, I don't like what we've arrived at now, we'll just go back to being God. But that wasn't what it was like when Christianity was in its heyday. God wasn't the default alternative. God was the thing at the very front of the mind that was pushing everyone forward, that we had to spread to the rest of the world. And when that kind of fervour dies away, I think the religion is basically dead. And whatever, like the new fervour now is social justice. It's about equality. It's about, you know, sameness. It's about representation. You can see the crusading spirit manifesting in the left. Like 1,000 years ago, these people would have been leading the crusades. They would have been marching on their way to Jerusalem, right? But now they're not. Now they're trying to make sure that, you know, God forbid there's a white person on my television or something like this. And so the thing that they do is their real religion. The thing that is in the very forefront of their thoughts is what they truly believe. Mm-hmm. And so having the default alternative of God being like, well, that didn't work, I guess I'm just going to force myself to go to church. You would be at church all the time if you truly believed. You wouldn't even think about it. You'd be like, God, I can't wait to get to church. This is going to be amazing. You know, because that would be the thing that genuinely captivated you. That's why. And that's what I mean with a sincere lack of belief. Like, you know, I'm sure there are a lot of Muslims who are like, oh, I don't like going to mosque. But clearly there are lots of them who do like going to the mosque. You know, this is clearly something important to them. And it's just not important to you in the same way. And to Westerners generally in the same way. And this is something I think that can't really be artificially reasoned into.